Hi, folks. Nick Tockert here with the Historical Fencing Guild. Before we get into the program, I do have to pay a few bills. First and foremost, I have to put out a shout out with all the love in the world to our good friends over at the Independent Creator Directory. That's IndieCD.org, your one-stop shop for the best and the brightest authors, artists, musicians, and other creatives. If you're looking to find and order custom presents, I'm sorry, I just noticed that I have an intruder. Stuart, are you trying to escape? Oh. Yes, you have to grab my good darts. Come on. Come see me. I don't know what you're hunting, but you can come up here. Okay, we will have a guest co-host for a minute until he's ready to go. Anyway, our good friends over at the Independent Creator Directory not only sponsor this program and everything I do on the Nick Tockert channel, please be sure to subscribe there after you've liked and subscribed here. They also provide a home for yours truly online where you can simply go and find out about me and the other authors. It is such a wonderful service to have access to the blog where I can talk to them. Yes. Get rid of this. We don't need this. Maybe we don't. There we go. We also have a code for you, Podcast One, which if you join and host yourself as a creator on the Independent Creator Directory, you can get half off the one lifetime fee that you have. Yep, there you go. That's you, Stuart. We are also made possible by sales of. Where are you? I need my book. I know. Juggling a cat makes you remind me of when I had a pet case. The Simple Sword. We are brought to you by the Simple Sword, the Fighting Axe, and the Simple Spear, all part of my ongoing series of Western martial arts manuals designed to help you go from having never handled the sword to teaching the art to others. Yes, Stuart, you were involved in those practices, weren't you? It's been a while since Stuart, the Sword Cat, has been around. But if you consider going on Amazon and buying those books, you will get plain, simple English that will tell you all about what we do and how we do it. And you, too, can learn to wield the sword, at least effectively. It's better to work with a master of some sort, but anybody can. And that's what we're about here. Now, the other thing is I do have an affiliate link to woodenswords.com, which is Purple Heart Armory. If you are buying gear from Purple Heart Armory, please consider using the affiliate link because, yes, I want to say a 3% kickback in like store credit or something. It's very rare that I get it. But more importantly, they know that my viewers are coming to their store, which means they're more likely to listen to me. Now, as another bit of announcement, I want to remind you all that I'm under a storm advisory and a wind advisory. This means at any point my broadcast may be canceled, by end of transmission. In the case of that, I will try to get it shut down. If not, Joe Bachman will come in later, check on me, and shut it down if need be. I would never bail on you guys. I'll never bail on you guys, period, but bail on you guys intentionally. Right, Dort? Yeah. Can I use my arm? Okay, it's going to be one of those streams. That's fine. I've been out of the day, and the weather's been bad, and Stuart is terrified of stormy weather. So he may just be right here for a while. And I'm okay with that if you guys don't mind the fluffy distraction. If you do mind the fluffy distraction, well, I'm sorry. He's family. Now, let's go to your comments real quick before we get into today's topics. Where is everyone? Well, I think because I was late getting the show set up, they're a little late coming in. And Foxy says here, and hi, Thesis, and show us the kid, hey. Well, this is Stuart. And I've been out of the house all day. And since I don't usually leave the house, he gets very anxious when he is alone. Well, he's not alone. He has 3 siblings, but he gets a little lonely. So he's going to just hang out here while we talk swords. And hi, cat. And that's Foxy saying hi and Kitty saying hi and not at all. Okay. So we are approaching, or we're supposed to be approaching, that wonderful time where it can cool off and you can start doing the kind of things that maybe it was too hot to do. A lot of us like to train in winter, and we like to do crafting in winter. When it's not, when it gets too cold or uncomfortable to what? Yes, I'm right here. I'm right here. When it gets too uncomfortable to fight because, the dangerous weather or dangerous cold, we have to start crafting. Now, my plan is to get Sir, pardon. What's up? What's up? I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted because I got bit. Well, not bit, but loved on. What's up? You ready to go? I don't know if I can run a commercial on this channel. No, I can't. So I will be back in just a second to let the cat out the office. Give me just a moment. Come on. Okay. You gonna be a good boy, Stuart? Okay, it's okay. You didn't bite hard. You know better. Hey, Boots, Stuart's coming out now. Okay. You didn't even hurt me, cat. You just kind of nommed. Ugh. I try to block off when I wander off screen because I may trip and fall or something silly, and I don't need that ran in my face for all of eternity. Thank you for your patience for a very strange startup stream. Now, as I said, I always think a season and a half ahead. We are in the process of redoing everything again. And we may be converting some things to some more, to minimizing the space we have devoted to simple physical fighting and instead upgrading the more distance-related things. Basically, the stuff I can do by myself. So there may be an archery lane put in. We will probably be working with the throwing target for a while as we lead up to winter. This winter, you guys got to hold me to it, but I'm going to do some intro to leather work. I've got some of the tools. I've been finding them that were lost from the move. A lot of my stuff got ruined in the process of a rushed move, having endured a flood and a fire before losing the house. It was a very tough time. And now, roughly 6 years later, we are at a point where we can finally get the rest of the gear down here, hopefully before winter, and make the changes. I should, knock on wood, be able to do overhead camera work. I am working on, that's why it's taking me so long to get the facilities right. So this is exciting. What was that? Not at all. Orange cats for you. Kitties like to nibble, huh? Yes, so behave, kitty. Now, be a good girl. Anyway, that being said, it's a great time. I find the best fighting happens in the fall. You get those nice, cool nights, normally prime bonfire weather, although we have a burn ban going on right now because it's been so dry, for the whole month, for 30 days. Technically, I'll be able to do a few other things. One moment, that shouldn't have even worked. But we are going to be doing that. That means I should have more recorded videos coming out, more things. I have some Patreon exclusive things I am working towards. A lot of what I've had to do had to be delayed due to, shall we say, shenanigans with the ongoing physical therapy I've been doing. Not the funnest, but it's what happens. Now, building for that. What do you need to armor? This is one of those things that have been asked. And, now is a good time. And let's see. I know. Thesis is... be in my house, and they won't allow it. I am so sorry you don't have a spot for it, for an archery range. I will be altering mine and making sure there's a good catch. I also will be setting up a Nerf range for my Nerf-related projects, because that's something I do a lot of, and it's a little bit safer for some of the stuff. But throwing knives are coming out to play. Archery is coming out to play. All that will be coming. But getting back to what materials do you want to gather if you are going to get into basic armoring? And it occurs to me I might talk a bit about this. I realized my banners got turned off. There we are. And I do want to thank my amazing patrons. The cat threw me off for a minute because he's not normally in here. But Off in the Woods, Frog G, Ronald Rain, Bladed Thesis, Cindy Kep, Brian K. Morris. I did them out of order, so I have to think for a second. Don Dulos. Yeah, I think that. No, yeah, that's everybody. I got everybody. Cool. You guys are the ones that keep this going. And I couldn't afford to order trainers and things to teach people and pass that on to them. Steve Augusto. I didn't mention Steve. Okay, Steve, first off, I'm so sorry for that. Like I said, we're a little scrambled here. I just came out of a very low blood sugar due to scheduling issues. Okay. Whoo. Random notification popped up, made it look like my screen went away. Weather report stuff. But since we're getting into that, what do you need to get started? Well, I would gather the gear to match what you're trying to work in. If you're going to work in HDPE or barrel plastic for the hard over soft style armor, you will need something to cut the armor out. You're going to need, at minimal, a scroll saw, hacksaw, some kind of detailing saw, jigsaw, to cut the plastic in the shapes you want. You're going to want at least a hand drill, but a drill vise, a drill press, that is much better. Or you can get a hand-powered bit and brace drill, which I've used many times, especially when I am out and about and I need to do armoring. Having one of those, which was in my original kit, I have to see if it's still, how much survived. The flood at this house damaged a lot of my stuff because it was right by where the pipe burst. The bit and brace is a wonderful tool. They're not terribly expensive, and they let you drill soft material relatively fairly easily with manual power. I will have to be cautious in all of this because of the limitations of my carpal tunnel and neuropathy. I'm going to do things, but I'm not going to excessively push it, which is necessary. So something to cut the plastic, something to drill the plastic. I would consider getting an eyelet press. It's a little plier thing that lets you put eyelets in. You can reinforce your holes, which will make it less likely to tear out. It won't abrade what you stitch through it, which will be what we talk about next. If you can do that, that is awesome. It also makes your material look a little bit more professional. Eyelet setters. They come in two varieties. There's the hammer style, where it's a separate piece, a little round base. You put the pieces of the eyelet in, bam, and you set it that way, much like a grommet setter, or the little pliers looking ones. Again, the weights that you're dealing with will have a lot to deal with how much of that you need. You want to make sure that they are, I want to say, 1/4 of an inch hole size. because of the paracord that you're going to want. You're going to want a 550 black paracord. Paracord is a neat stuff because it has nylon braiding and then separate nylon strings. With your paracord, you're going to want a very sharp pair of scissors, and you're going to want and I have one around here, a torch style lighter, preferably an offset one like this little guy. I have a much fancier one in my main kit, but I was doing some light grade work, so I have this little guy because it fits in my pocket better. Yes, I know they have other uses, but we are not nefarious around here. The reason is whenever you cut paracord, do I have any with me that I can show you on hand? Not right now. Bother. But whenever you cut paracord, it will fray. And because it's a plastic-based rope, you can very carefully light your torch and gently, just from a distance, melt the paracord back. Let it cool. Take a moment or two. Make sure it's cool before you work with it, because paracord burns suck. I am very intimately aware with it. And after you cut it, it will make a sort of mushroom dome. If you aren't fully practiced, if you overdo it, you may have to take the aforementioned sharp scissors and shape it a little bit so that it can go through nice through the eyelets or the regular holes you do if you don't use eyelets. So you're going to need that. That's not terribly expensive. You can get it at Walmart. You can get it in a lot of colors. I would say don't get the survival branded stuff. How did you get in? Hi. Oh, he went through the door again. Hi, Boots. Go on back out. Anyway, Boots doesn't like to have me hold her, so anyhow. The paracord can come in a lot of colors, but the survival paracord, the fancy stuff, tends to have a copper wire that runs through the middle, and that can make it stiffer and a little unyielding for when you want to do very tight things. Like there are different types of armor you can make. You can do types of scale mail, and the scale mail is based on Japanese designs, where you have pieces about this big with multiple holes in their sewing patterns. And you then take these little scales and you stitch them together, and you get this very nice, very flexible outer mail that you then wear a gambeson under. You will want to eventually do some sewing or have someone who can sew do the sewing for you. That's one thing about what we do. I do come at it from a reenactor mentality. I was SCA for a decade and some change. That means I am very comfortable with making my own gear. But when you're making your own gear, you need to find certain resources, and you can find them. You can find patterns all over the place. You can also borrow patterns from historical pieces, or look at the pieces certain companies are selling, sometimes even as Halloween goods, because many times you'll see a Halloween decoration, a Halloween bit of armor that, while the material is garbage, the design is peak. The design is highly effective. So what you do, dear friends, is you simply carefully take it apart and use that as a pattern to make different things. Right now, I am looking at some leather back scabbards. I am looking at some new bracer designs, new pouch designs. There's some knees I want to look into, and I want to work with that. You also, if you are working with plastic, okay, if you're using electric equipment, get the cheapest corded electric gear you can. Get, either get used or get the cheap Tool Shop, I believe is the company. stuff you get from Menards. And the reason is this, and it's the same reason you want to wear goggles and you want to wear a face mask whenever you are using certain types of tools to cut plastics. You do not want to inhale plastics pieces. This is bad berries. This is life-threatening pneumonia nastiness. We don't want that. So anytime you're working with plastics that are cold, you're just cold cutting them, do wear at least a N95. Now, if you're heating plastics at any point to shape them, and we will get into that, if not tonight, in a later video. I like to give a talk through and then maybe a walkthrough later, so you've heard the ideas and now you're seeing them applied. If you're going to do that, you need ventilation, you need heat gear, welding gloves at least. You want to be responsible because the fumes that come off of plastic when it's heated are no joke. This is also a good time to get an inexpensive, used, thrifted, or otherwise cheap toaster oven to do different heat treats. And you can also use that if you're doing metalwork and you want low-level tempering and things. It's just a good thing to have. Now, the reason I'm not out in the garage bringing things in is we have alleged chickens, and I did not know I was that highly allergic to them. It got worse kind of suddenly. I had onset of some stuff. So I actually can't go into my garage right now until Mandy and or Xander do a massive clean on the garage, because I will have severe reactions all over my body, have trouble breathing. It would be bad berries. So that's delayed some stuff. I am as frustrated or more so than you are. But plastic, barrel plastic, you want closed cell foam, especially if you're going to attach foam to the hard stuff, which a lot of times you want to do. If you're doing that, you need closed cell foam and I think it's 3M makes a very good spray adhesive that's compatible with plastic. Now, remember again, whenever you're doing anything that is compatible with plastics, you want to wear a mask, at least a full respirator if you have access. Some protection is better. I would rather have you overdo it than underdo it. And again, forced ventilation or, open door outside, whatever. Any kind of spray adhesive, you definitely want a mask for, again, because that's not stuff you want in your lungs. If I seem to be overbearing the points of safety on this, it's because I care. Now, we have that method. The foam. I like to use Camp Pad. You can buy it in rolls at Walmart. It's still roughly $10 for a, I want to say like a 3 by 6.5 foot roll of the stuff. You also can find it at thrift shops a lot of times. Somebody gave up camping. Is it something I'd want to sleep on? No. Should you sanitize anything you get from a thrift shop? Obviously. But it can be applied directly to the plates to give you extra padding for the hard over soft. We talk about this. Hard armor spreads out force. Well, it's going to sound stupid, but if I poke with this pencil, it takes very little force to do damage and hurt, because it is a tiny area that all that force is being channeled into. But if I put my finger over it and you have this wide force, the outside force on the palm is almost non-existent. That one was a little stupid. That was uncomfortable. But 2, is how armor works. The hard armor spreads out force. Now, the soft armor absorbs force. Okay? Let me bring that up. And I know this is basic physics, and it seems obvious, but when you are in the process of thinking about it, you need to look into how you do. Okay? Yeah. Now, deformation makes a big difference, especially in hard armor. Then it does a focus thing, which is why having a certain elasticity, a certain pushback to your armor is a very good idea, because if it's too rigid, it will shatter. Having armor plate shatter sucks. I know this because I've used different types of plastic that I don't recommend now, mistakenly did it in the cold and had them shatter. I've also had plastic armor in the extreme heat get soft. Lots of sunlight, lots of heat. And remembering that sunlight is the enemy of all plastics, or at least most that we deal with. So we want to keep that in mind. Now, excluding the lovely bits of all that, you have hard over soft. You have, I'm sorry, I'm going through my thing. The spray adhesives are wonderful things for multiple reasons. We've talked paracord. You want, as we cross over from plastics into plastics, metals, and leather for your armoring needs, one thing you will want to master is a simple rivet. Now, there are multiple kinds of rivet. Many of you are familiar with pop rivets, the little dudes where you stick the gun, you squeeze it, and it cuts off the back of this little kind of almost T-shaped thing from the side, expands out the other side, and it gives you a rivet that people use in bodywork and stuff. Do not use pop rivets. They are not strong enough. You want to use actual, preferably solid core copper rivets. Now, the copper rivet's going to have two parts: the rivet itself and the bushing. Shoot. Anyway, it looks like a washer. My brain doesn't like terminology, especially when I'm tired. What you do is you set it, so you put the flat, so it's sticking up like a T on something hard like an anvil. I have a little tiny anvil just for this kind of thing, so I can do it on decent tables. I won't do it on a plastic table. I want a solid wood table that you can mar or damage. This is why I love old wooden TV tray tables. They're great for this because you can use them to death, repair them, use them, repair them, and when they die, you can just pitch them in a fire and acquire a new one. But you don't have to. A lot of times they'll last years and years and years if you are relatively gentle. So that goes down. The next thing you're going to have is a rivet setter. So you're going to put the bushing. Is it bushing? Anyway, put the setter on, smack the setter with a hammer. The setter is going to push around the tube and push that washer down. Now, the next part to doing a rivet is peening the rivet, which you've ever heard the phrase ball peen hammer. Those hammers that are flat and have a ball on the end are for doing things like this. And how you do that is first you cut off a chunk, any excess, because you don't want a lot of excess. You want usually between a 1/4 inch, 3/8 if you're good. I like a 1/4. I've almost gone half. A chunk of that copper sticking back up. Now, some of these devices have rivet, the part that domes the rivet. So you just put that, it gives you a big kind of dished piece of, you've got a cylinder with a dish cut out, and the concave surface sits on the end. You go pop, 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 and it gives you a consistent concave rivet that mushrooms out, and that's the proper term, the top of the copper so it flattens, making it a solid link. This is how solid fixed links are usually installed, usually between metal and metal that you want a piece of leather to act as a sort of washer. It protects everything involved, especially if it's going to be articulated on that point. Now, if you have a part where you want that kind of motion, but you want to be able to remove it or change it, alter it, for that you're going to need what's called a Chicago screw. The proper term is a threaded post. And that's where you'll have a flat piece that looks like the bottom part of the rivet, the main part of the rivet, that comes up, and it is hollow and threaded, and a wide-headed screw or bolt threads into it. This lets you have a part that can be looser, can be much better at hinging to hold things together, and that you can easily take apart and adjust. These are wonderful for the fancier type of gorgets. Okay. You can also do the tubular rivets. They will not be as strong. I don't like tubular rivets in armoring. I simply don't. I prefer actual copper rivets. Now, as we progress from this connecting thing, we're going to go into leather kind of a bit more expressly. And there are things you need if you're going to work with leather. And I don't expect you all to remember this, guys. This is me giving you a first exposure to these concepts. You'll hear it. And then when I come back again with a more detailed, slower breakdown with graphs and things, you'll go, oh, he talked about this. The knowledge will feel familiar. And whatever you obtain for this will kind of let the idea door in for the rest. I hope that makes sense. Now, for leather, you are going to want leather of the proper weight. Weight is usually measured in ounces, which is an odd way to measure thickness. But also, for most armoring, your minimum, you're going to want about 2 to 3 millimeter thick leather. There are measures for that. A company called Tandy is going to be your very expensive friend. A place called Goodwill and other thrift stores are going to be your special love of your life when you start looking at the prices of things like buckles and snaps. Now, snaps can be set. They're wonderful things. You can get a snap and a snap setter. Works just like the other setters I was talking about. I may demonstrate those. But these are the methods we're going to connect material to other material. With the leather, you're going to want some kind of punch. Most common, I would say, for our uses is what's called a rotary leather punch, because it has 5 diameters of hole that it can punch out, and it's conical, and the outside sharpens in, and then it digs out the point and leaves a core of leather inside the device that you push out with either, usually you want to push out with a stick. It makes things a little easier. Something like that is going to allow you to make holes in your leather that you can either use to rivet, or if you do a lot of the little holes, you can use that to stitch. I want to stop right here and say that when I get to the point of talking about sewing, occasionally, because of people who are interested in what we do, there's a little bit of a, frankly, misogynist mindset that pops up, where almost always, when I'm doing a big group discussion on this, I get one young man who says something along the lines of sewing is not men's work or whatever. And if you think all those gentlemen who sailed on ships made of cloth, ships made of wood with sails made of cloth, had seamstresses on board, you are in for a rude awakening. Sewing and knot tying are things that every man should be able to do, at least at a basic level. My sewing is ugly a lot of the time, except for my leather sewing, because I get to be slow with that and pre-punch all the holes. Now, there are tools you can use to pre-punch the holes that aren't the regular punch. One thing that you may want is a hole spacer. And a hole spacer looks like, honestly, it looks like a spur, like on the back of a cowboy boot, but usually they're kind of needly sharp. And what that does is you roll it along the edge of the leather. And from there, it leaves this whole line of little holes, so you know where you can either take a leather awl, A-W-L, awl, I never say it right, but you can punch holes with that. There are speed stitchers, which basically work like a sewing machine in an awl, and you could go ta-tunk, 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 ta-tunk down the line. I've never been good at them. I don't like them. I'm more a basic, give me the leather, I'll put a lock stitch on it, and go on down the line when I'm connecting pieces of leather together. Or just do rivets, because I love rivets. But sometimes in armor's life, there must be some sewing. Now, when we talk about what we sew, there are fancy names for it. Some people use sinew-based threads. Most people use a waxed leather thread. Well, do you know what else is a waxed leather thread that you can get on a fairly large spool for very little money? Dental floss. So I have a great many leatherworks I've done over the years. And, usually I've distributed them because that's why I don't have them. These pieces, usually for the first while, if you are real close, you'll smell leather and something minty fresh. That is from using the waxed thread that's very hard to break, dental floss. And I usually double through it. And that has held for years and years and years. You don't need the fancy stuff if you're just getting started. If you're worried, then get the fancy stuff. It has its benefits, but I come at things from the most poor side of things. Now, I realize there have been some comments, so I'm going to take a moment to double check that I'm not missing anything important, and we'll get back to things. All righty. I wish I had some archery evening. Good evening, Dawn. And thank you for your support. Dawn is one of my lovely patrons. Kitty says, I would be interested in hearing what kind of armor you would suggest for people with breasts. I may not be as endowed as Foxy, but that still makes things difficult sometimes. Yes, it does. And many armorers will shy away from that because there is the fitting, if you are doing armoring, can be tricky. So first and foremost, we're going to go beneath the armor for just a moment. Every woman who sword fights should wear some type of plastron. It is usually about 1/8 of an inch thick armor. They may not be sized perfectly. Sometimes you have to work on that. But over the breast region. The reason for that being that repeated blows to breast tissue is one of the higher ranked ways to have breast cancer over time. Which, if you think about it, if you're constantly repairing the same spot, it has more of a chance for the cells to go nuts, which is all cancer is. I take that deadly serious, as my mother is a breast cancer survivor. She had it in the late 80s. And it took a lot from her. But she survived. She is thriving, brilliant woman in her early to mid 70s. But, so that way she's okay. You're still going to want to wear, first off, you're going to want to wear undergarments that are very specific. You're going to want to wear something like a sports bra. A sports bra No clips, zippers, uh, latches, hooks. You don't want anything metal in the region. You want a whole plastron that does its best to cover you. This is under padded armor. This is second chance body armor, because second chance body armor always is a great idea, and it is the next to the little black dress, the pinnacle of fashion sense. After that, you're going to want a chest plate. You're going to want a chest plate that covers basically from here across your upper chest down to at least your waist. Not your pant waist, not whatever you're wearing waist, your natural waist. Because you still want to be able to move. This is where armor articulation gets important. It should be a single solid piece. I have worked with people who have very substantial endowments. And this is where we start getting into how armor is shaped. One thing you can do, especially if you're making armor and clothing for yourself as a woman, men can do this too, don't get me wrong, but what you want to do to consider as a woman is making a tailored dressmaker's dummy, wherein you wear the undergarment you're going to wear under your fighting gear, so that everything is roughly where it is. If possible, you want to be a little closer to when you are at your most swollen, because women's bodies tend to shift fairly dramatically from a sewing perspective as time goes on. And I will ask Aunt Donna about her armor sometime. But you're going to make this. You're going to take that, wear that. You probably put a t-shirt on that you are not getting back. This is dying. It's dying for a good cause. And you probably want to wear something. Well, you'll be wearing your bra, so you're okay. And then what you're going to have somebody do is take a couple rolls of duct tape and duct tape you into everything as a bodice, like you would. And so what you do then, once you're all wrapped up in duct tape, now you want a shirt over it. Sometimes you want saran wrap between the two layers, just to make sure you are both fitted, supported, etc., and safe, so you're not having to peel duct tape or weirdness off to get it off. And then having someone you trust very carefully take scissors and cut you out of it. Then you seal off, add the armhole. You can go up to the arms and cut out the arms and then reseal them to make sure, you're not catching in here. Once you have this, seal the bottom, fill the whole thing up with expanding foam. That would be something like Great Stuff. And you can put on a chunk of PVC that has a cross piece to keep it from sliding down. And what you will have is a fitted dressmaker's dummy for you of your upper body. Then you can do things like take measurements. You can... I'm sorry, I've done a lot of improvisational armor, so I have to decide how much of it I want to talk about. I might as well. You can do something like that and take measurements. You can even cut it apart to get pattern pieces for what will minimum fit you very, very tight. But I wouldn't. You may have to do it twice. That's fine. But then you want to figure your cut the measurements so it will fit fairly comfortably, leaving enough room for padding as a single piece, leaving arm space so that you have full range of movement. But you want to protect your sternum to your waist with at least the breastplate area. We're protecting the breast. You want it to be a single. All women I know who've had to wear sports bras for something know the term mono boob. Okay, you want that kind of a structure. Now, depending what you're making it with, you can use your dummy, lay it on its back, and apply heat. Okay, if you're doing leather, you can harden leather a couple ways. You can soak it in wax or you can soak it in water and then mold it and let it dry to that shape. And it will, to an extent, hold that shape. If you're doing plastics, heat tends to get involved and it gets a little dicey. So the method that I have seen work the best, and this does speak more to the size of the women I was working with, voluptuousness. I'm sorry, I'm trying to be delicate. I'm very delicate in these types of things because it would be very easy for somebody to perceive an armorer to be overly sexualized or something. So this is why I never work on women's armor alone or on, like, unsupervised by somebody I trust. But if you can guesstimate the overall breast size, and you can get, heaven help me, the metal mixing bowls that are roughly there, you can deform them. You can also use Sculpey and take your pattern like you did and instead put it over Sculpey to get the inside pattern, let it dry. Sculpey's a type of clay, and that gives you a rigid, heat-tolerant bust that you can then spray with, you can either spray with cooking oil or you can put cloth that has been wetted, and then you apply your plastic and you hit it with a heat gun. And a heat gun is basically a tactical grade hairdryer. This is definitely done outside, lots of ventilation. And what you're going to do with either the leather in a mechanical shape that you use rubber bands and perhaps rope or things to strap to keep the form how you want it while it dries. Some of us may be better at using rope than others. I think Kitty's extracurricular knowledge may pay well into this, but you want to shape it so that your armor is then shaped to fit mostly how your chest and area breathe. You want to make sure you leave room for overlap on the sides for safety. Your overlap always wants to go towards the back. If you have actual overlap, you either want three pieces where there's a strip that is filling in the gap between where it is laced. So you'll stow one side of it to the leather, and you're going to go over it like this. Or if you have an overlap, you want the overlap to be facing away from your opponent because that's where you're most likely to get a catch. And Rex says, hey Rex, by the way, it's funny to see you tiptoe this subject. I thought you were confident. I am, but I'm also a married man, and I am someone who works with children and volunteers with children, has a history of working in schools, and frankly, anytime a man gets close to a woman, lots of contact with a woman's body or near contact, just like when I have to do kind of hand over hand adjustment, because sometimes people need that. I've learned it is better to be careful and safe for all with extreme clarity. Oftentimes, I would prefer to video record it so that there is no chance of anyone getting confused on intent or actions. It's a safety thing. It's not tiptoeing, especially and you have to realize also, Kitty is a very confident individual. I would probably have less difficulty working with her than some of my other former students that have endured assaults. SA. They get funny if I use the term. I think that's BS, but you know what I mean. So I have to be very careful whenever I am touching anyone, male, female, anything on that spectrum. So I don't do anything alone. I don't do anything unsupervised. You know what I'm saying? But if it was somebody I know real well, like Trelena, I could help her and, do anything, but I would, I know how to not touch things I don't need to touch. But you want to make the shape so it's a monoboob. And see, and that's the thing. Being a dancer, I've had many people's hands on my body. As long as there's consent, I have no problem. And that's the thing. For me, consent is key. And I take getting consent deadly serious. And I always, yes, sometimes to a fault, will give lots of opportunities to support someone if they wish to revoke the consent. Because what I never want to be doing is working with something like this to on a student and have them, because I only teach adults for reasons like this. Have them be uncomfortable and not say anything to me. That is like my scariest outcome. I would hate to be someone who causes trauma to someone. So I'm very, 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 very careful. Okay. Now, there is a question about boob armor where there's the ding. Some people will say, you're not going to flex the armor. It's not, the steel or whatever isn't going to flex. Don't worry about it. That's balderdash. They're wrong. My problem is I have seen bad things happen on the field. I've had bad things happen to me on the field. This is why I know I look dorky with my plastron, under a Hawaiian shirt, because we're going to do a quick light fence. Hold on, let me put this on. But I've had my ribs torn off my sternum by a rapier. It nearly killed me. When the doctor asks you after examining you, are you a Christian? That makes this easier. Puts KT tape essentially to try to keep it down. It says, walk calmly and drive yourself to the ER and get that checked. There's a possibility that it is that your rib is pushing on your lung. And in that case, it was blindingly painful. I went, and as they laid me down on the X-ray and pushed my shoulders back, the ribs expanded and they popped back into place. Thank God. But it could have easily killed me. When I talk safety and I talk legality, you'll notice all the humor leaves my voice. A lot of times my personality seems to just... Everything is very literal and very careful. Take it serious. So I would do something like that. Another option is braided leather, which is a type of riveting the leather, something like brigadine, where you do a leather sheet and then you rivet on small plates spaced, so you have the flexibility to work around the extra curves. People will say chainmail. Remember what chainmail is for. Chainmail is technically, by my definition, soft armor. It absorbs and distributes impact, but it will flex. So if you have chainmail on and you take a hit, it will still move with it. It will keep something sharp from cutting you very well. Think about the shark armor, okay? It's essentially very tight-knit chainmail. It keeps the teeth from being able to get in to you, but it doesn't stop the crushing force. You understand? So I will always say mono boob. And I know it doesn't. You can many times women fought in just a standard, slightly dished breastplate. You can look at many examples of female armor, and you usually can tell not by the breastplate, but by the hips and knees. Because women, especially coming into armoring, they worry about this. That's not where armor gets tricky. The hips and knees are where armor gets tricky because women's hips flare usually differently than men's. They hinge at different points. And if a male armorer does not know how to adjust for that, or is not willing to try, you will have armor that hurts or actually does damage. It will pinch. It will be what's called armor bites. This is one of those conversations that really needs to be had with Amanda because she can explain it from a lived-it perspective far more than I can on that. When it's like for Amanda to make her knees, for her to be able to kneel in armor, their solution was to make these huge cups. Because when she bends down, women's knees are shaped a little differently and they function a little differently than men's. And when I am saying this, I am talking the biological presentation, not gender roles or anything like that. This is not me being gender anything. This is me dealing with the biological, mechanical, structural differences between somebody with a female style skeleton versus a male style skeleton. Please, I beg of you, if you are a female looking to get into armor, or you are, if you have a female coded skeleton, that might be the best way to say it because I deal with people with a lot of diverse genders. And I know that's odd, but we're going to go with it. Read Toby Beck's book. I need to buy another copy because it's one of those books, much like Dan Millman's Way of the Peaceful Warrior, that I never get to keep long. I have a habit of just giving them away. Her book is a definitive entry to understanding the differences in this. And I really, really want all of you, if you are armoring women, if you're training women, if you're fighting with women, read this book. Like I said, I need to get another copy. I may have to just get it on Kindle. But maybe PDF. I'll have to look around. When you look at training women, the armoring is a big thing. You have to pay attention because many times a woman will have higher pain tolerance than men. Now, what does that mean to an armorer? That means if it's uncomfortable, they may not tell you. Whereas most people will say, the illusion of women being sissies, the kind who come out to fight very rarely are. There are, of course, exceptions, but they're usually incredibly tough ladies who want to get tougher, and I respect that. So you have to pay attention. Your armor should do very little to encumber your movement. Okay? What does that mean? That means you want your range of movement to be as close to it is unarmored as it is armored. And there are some wonderful videos of people in full period armor running obstacle courses with no problem. Because if it's fitted to you and articulated properly, and we're talking head to toe plate, way more advanced than I could ever get near. I am a talented dabbler. I encourage you guys to learn and become better than me because that's what I want. I want all of you to find what you're passionate about in this field and get better at it than me. And if you can do that severely enough, you can come back and teach it to everyone so we can build everybody up. But I hope I've answered your question, Kitty. You also want to make sure you have back armor. And that's a little easier to mold. But again, you're going to have layered pieces. So you're going to have something that covers your breast, your chest, and back. You're going to want to cover your neck, especially your cervical vertebrae. This is called the gorget. We will get into those. Every joint, elbows, knees. Consider ankles. If you can wear boots and fight comfortably in them, you want something that's going to protect your feet, protect your toes. If you can fight comfortably in them and steel toe boots are comfortable for you, not a bad idea. If not, you're going to wear closed-toe shoes. I will not allow you to fight in the Historical Fencing Guild in anything that I am doing barefoot or in open-toe shoes, like sandals and stuff. I'm just not doing it. I'm not dealing with somebody catching a pinky toe and snapping it. I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen with people screwing around in camp. We don't want that. I don't want that for you. You don't want that for you. Closed-toe shoes. On the subject of hands, I don't think there's a swordsman alive who doesn't lust after the full-fingered gauntlets. And you can get them. They're very expensive. When you start looking at $500,000, I briefly had a set that had an error. The man who made it asked for them back to fix the error and never returned them. I'm deeply saddened by that loss. It was one of those, he gave it and took it back. But when you look into that, hard over soft is good. Especially if we're doing heavy combat. So your gloves should match what you're doing. Solid leather gloves, great. You can go lighter leather if you're fighting in something that has a lot of hand protection, like a cup hilt or a saber hilt, something like that. If you're doing swept hilt or minimal hilt kind of things, I want to see that hand heavily armored. Lacrosse gloves, hockey gloves are good. Lacrosse gloves are better. They do make HEMA style gloves at some reasonable prices. Red Dragon does some pretty good ones. Purple Heart Armory has some great gauntlets on that whole sliding scale. But think of your fingers like sticks. Okay. Under a clamshell, when you are holding, especially like a pole arm, your goal is to have the pieces of the clamshell such that the edges are in contact with the haft or the hilt of what you're holding. That way, when it absorbs impact, the force goes right into the hilt and not into your hand or wrist. You want a full mitten-style gauntlet, because if you don't have the levels of support you need, if you go individual, the downside is these can be snapped, just like the toes. I have seen some interesting things where people are using lobster gauntlets, where, 2 fingers to make it a little stronger but give it a little more flex. I'm not sure. I will always be overprotective with my students. If that offends, keep on walking. I will always have a safety first, second, and third mentality. And the older I get, the more I get that way, because I've seen it go wrong. And guys, I've seen swords break. I've seen trainers break. I've seen trainers ding and then have a sharp edge and cut somebody. To this day, it's why I can sadly never recommend the Axe Gang hatchet from Cold Steel, because the plastic is too soft and it can ding. And actually, Joe took a graze and it cut him from the edge of a ding on the axe, cut his arm. So what that means is you're going to want to be very careful. Now, I will go into details. I will bring up perhaps next week. I'm trying to pace things out because I'm at a very, very busy part of my year where I'm coming up on several family birthdays. My anniversary is a little over a month and a week away, something like that. LodgeCon, Halloween, a few other things. So there's a lot going on in my world. Very, very busy. But I can try to bring it more armor for next week and focus more in and talk about how it's made. Perhaps if my hands will cooperate, do some demonstrations. I don't want to lie to you. And unfortunately, I am at the mercy of my limitations. And I can either hide that in shame, or I can lay it out before you as an honest offering of, this is literally all I have. I can't promise 100% with the hands. My mind is very clever for such things. My hands, not as much as they were. And they're weakened, and they don't have the duration to do what I want all the time, especially during this time when the weather gets shifty. I do ask your patience and tolerance on that issue. But thank you. Do what you can, Nick. It's fine. Thank you. And like I said, it's more important for me to be honest so that when you have limitations, you will let yourself work with them honestly. Because if you lie to yourself, you will hurt yourself. And no one wants that. Which means I have to be a much better example than maybe I would like to. In the past, it was my do everything for everyone, and then I will hurt and be crippled when nobody's looking. Because I overdo it. I'm at a point where I can't recover. I can't have that kind of downtime. So I won't. But we will see. I hope this was somewhat informative. Please come with armoring questions next week. I may, if possible, have my lovely wife sit in if I can get space and the settings set up right for her. I can recommend retailers for armor that I know are good. I can go through some of that. I may recommend Purple Heart Armory for some armoring. I probably will. However, I want you to understand I will never not recommend something that does not benefit me, nor promote something excessively that benefits me over other things if it's not genuinely better. I take my integrity on such very seriously. So that will be, again, a thing. And yeah, Stuart just walked through the screen door. I realized what he did. So with that, guys, I hope this has been an interesting discussion. This is a good primer before we get into armoring season. I hope to have some more videos for you that are interesting, weather permitting. And I think that's a good place to cut off for the night. We're at hour 10, roughly. Don says hi, Stuart. Oh, he's not coming over here now. Now he's hiding because he knows. Anyway, if you have questions, okay, and you're watching this in the rerun, fire them off in the chat. If you have the means to contact me directly, please reach out, especially where armoring is involved. Okay. There are a lot of areas that need to be protected, especially that I didn't get into. I didn't talk much about groin protection. I didn't talk much about kidney protection, although definitely want something wide. That would be the next part down. There are simple solutions. There are elegant solutions. There are attractive solutions. And that's usually the sliding scale of money. But we'll break that down too. But with that, guys, I'm going to say thank you. And keep doing your drills. Keep your eyes open. Be kind to yourself and each other. And as always, friends, thank you for supporting your local sword master. If you'd like to help support me in this, continue what I do, consider becoming a patron on my Patreon at literally any price level. $1 a month is a huge boon. And if I could get $1 a month from everyone I trained, I'd be able to have. Honestly, if I could get $1 a month from everyone I trained, I'd probably have an indoor facility right now. But that's okay too, because it's not about the money. It's about serving you guys. It's about building you up in hopes that you will build up others. I believe the only way to elevate is to push the bottom of the pyramid up, because there will always be amazingly talented people like Rex Hood and others who are seeking the peak. I was not gifted with the physicality to do that. So I do the best I can with what I got. All right, folks. I will be on the Nick Talker channel Monday. I will be back here Friday. And we'll see y'all real soon, okay? I love you and you should too. Toodles.